my God, what have I got myself involved in? These kids are really fast. When the race was over, I could only surmise that I was the only one who had taken it seriously, because when I broke the tape in front of the Middlesex Club here, I looked back and the second run I hadn't reached Bigelow Avenue yet. That afternoon, the doorbell rang at home, and upon answering it, I found a tall, well-dressed, very distinguished-looking gentleman whom I had never seen before in my life. He told me he had watched me run and win the junior marathon, and he congratulated me. He asked me if my parents were home. I said no, they work 6 days a week. Would I be coming out for the track team when I got to high school? No. I did not elaborate to Coach Perkins, and I hadn't even told my closest friends this, but my father had made it perfectly clear that once I got to high school, the day for fun and games was over. He felt very strongly that it was as important a part of my education to develop a work ethic and learn the value of a dollar, just as important as going to high school. Well, then Coach Perkins asked me if I was going to college. I said no. Why not? Because my parents can't afford to send me to college. Did I know that scholarships were available for outstanding runners with decent grades? Well, I had heard in the East Junior High playground that some football players that had won scholarships, but I had never known of a Watertown runner who had ever won a scholarship. He assured me that such scholarships were available, and then he very kindly offered to return to speak to my father and to avail him of the opportunities that existed if I were allowed to come out for the track team. Well, with an offer like that, I know that everybody in the audience knows what my answer was. Now, if you guessed that it was yes, you are 100% incorrect. You see, you would have to be a first-generation American born of non-English speaking immigrants, whether they be Greek or Italian or Lebanese or Armenian, I don't care, to appreciate my dilemma. My father had a very limited command and understanding of the English language, and he was not an exception. In Little Armenia in those days, the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker all spoke Armenian. All these immigrants had to know was a few well-turned English phrases, and they flourished very well, thank you. I told Coach Perkins that I would speak to my father for him because I wanted to avoid a triad of embarrassment. Well, you might say, well, why didn't I act as an interpreter between Perkins and Hovhannes? Well, the reason for this is that I had a limited command of the Armenian language. I didn't know the Armenian word for scholarship. I still don't know what the Armenian word for track team is. I mean, I didn't even know the Armenian word for coach. So I assured Coach Perkins that I would speak to my father that evening and convey his message. That night, I told my father of my victory in the Pee Wee Marathon and of Coach Perkins' subsequent visit. He held no special significance of my winning the Pee Wee Marathon because he considered that merely as play. It was like watching me run up and down Chauncey Street. But Coach Perkins' visit confounded him. In Armenian, he said to me, Anto, Tsakas, Danzukaloch, Gentes, Inches. Translation, Anto, my Armenian nickname, from where my Watertown nickname Ando is derived. Anto, Ando. Tsakas, my child. Danzukaloch, pear brain. Are you crazy or something? And he asked me one question. He said, explain to me why a great university with brilliant professors, esteemed faculty, libraries stacked with thousands of books should offer you a valuable education free simply because you can run fast. I was rendered speechless because I could not offer a rational rebuttal to his logic. I remember thinking that night, why the hell do colleges give athletic scholarships anyway? I mean, what's the correlation between an athletic body and an academic mind? That night, I remember silently crying myself to sleep. Came the dawn Sunday morning, a new possibility dawned on me. Who was the one person that my father revered above all others? In fact, who was the only person that he would acknowledge as holding dominion over him? In fact, who was the one person that the entire Armenian community both respected and admired? Does anyone in the audience want to tell me who that person was? No. You're right. The Odad knows the answer. Archbishop Dadagian of the St. James Armenian Church, where I was an altar boy. That morning, before services, I asked Archbishop Dadagian if he would speak to my father and me. Are you in some kind of trouble, Antanik? No, we have a problem at home. He agreed. After church, I told my father that the Suprazan High, the Archbishop, wanted to speak to us after church. Antanik, are you in some side of trouble? No, the Archbishop wants to talk to us. When we met in his chambers, the Archbishop said, Hovannes, what is this I hear that there is a problem in your house? Hovannes was understandably mortified. He said, Archbishop, there are no problems under my roof. There is food in the ice chest, clothes on our back, and Vartuhi, my mother Rose, we have jobs. Why is it you ask if there is a problem in my house? The Archbishop, not known for his patience, turned to me angrily and said, Antanik, didn't you tell me this morning there was a problem in your house? I then told the Archbishop of Coach Perkins' visit and my father's response to it. All he said was, ah. He recognized that, in fact, there was a conflict in our house, and he asked me one question. Is Baron Perkins a teacher? I correctly guessed yes. He told me to leave the room and not come back until I was called for. When I was called back in the room, he called me to his side and held my hands in his and said, you should thank God that you have a father who is so generous and far-sighted. He does not want to go through life thinking that he has deprived you of a college education because he thought it was better that you work after school. But I am going to speak the truth to you as I have to your father. In all the years I have been in this country, I have never known of an Armenian boy, either in my diocese or any other diocese, who has won a scholarship because he was fleet of foot. I have heard of other sportsmen winning scholarships, but never a runner. So I'll have to say to you that your chances of winning a scholarship are about this big. And as he held his fingers up like this, he said, unless, of course, the blood of Varastad is coursing through your veins. I said, Varastad? I turned to my father for some guidance, but he was equally puzzled. And he told the Archbishop, pardon my ignorance, but who is this Varastad you speak of? Hovannes, have you ever heard of the Olympic Games? To my surprise, he said, yes, they were competitions held by the Greeks even before the birth of Christ. He says, you are right. Then why is it that you do not know that 369 years after the death of Christ, that the last known Olympic champion was an Armenian by the name of Varastad. And when he returned back to his homeland, he was crowned king of Armenia. What a story. My father was so infused with pride, he wept before both of us. As for me, I had to restrain myself from laughing out loud. I mean, how could my father be so naive? How could he believe such a preposterous story? An Armenian during the Roman Empire, being an Olympic champion, and being crowned king of Armenia? Come on. I was a streetwise kid, and I knew a legend when I heard one. But I knew why the Archbishop spun this yarn. He wanted me to work hard when I went out for the track team so I would meet my full potential. 1 year later, at graduation from Wilbraham Academy, the headmaster said that Andrew John Dadagian, son of John and Rose Dadagian of Watertown, Massachusetts, has achieved the following. And he read a list of things, and he ended up by saying, and in the 127-year history of this institution, Andrew is the only student to have ever won a national championship in an athletic event. Yet, despite all these achievements, Andrew has failed to win a single athletic scholarship. I asked him a couple of days ago what his plans were for the coming academic year. He tells me that he has selected Cornell University, where he is going to matriculate as a pre-medical student. How can that be? Well, you see, Andrew has won numerous full academic scholarships. He does not have to step 1 foot on the Cornell track, but we are sure he will carry on the same tradition he started in Watertown High School and continued here in Wilbraham Academy. That afternoon, I had 2 hours to kill before my friend was going to give me a ride back to Watertown. I knew where I was going to spend those last 2 hours, in the library, which was my favorite haunt. Now, what happened to me in that library that afternoon remains a mystery to me to this day. I can offer no logical explanation for it. For when I went into that library, I noticed that I was the only one there, and when I went to the corner table where I used to do my studying, I found a book on the table that was brand new. I read the title, History of the Ancient Olympic Games. Something stirred in my memory as I opened the book, and when I read it, I noted that it mentioned the final of the ancient Olympic Games, and it was in 369 AD, just as the Archbishop had said. I read on and turned the page, and to my horror, I read that the last Olympic champion was Varastades, Greek for Varastad. And when he returned to his homeland, he was crowned king of Armenia. That night, I felt an overwhelming, all-consuming change. I have 2 major regrets in my lifetime. One, that I doubted the veracity and scholarship of my priest. My second regret is that my coach is not here with me this evening. I asked him if he would be my guest, but he had to regretfully decline because his arthritis is so severe, he can no longer make the trip from Florida to his beloved Watertown. So I am grateful for being inducted into the Hall of Fame, but I am even more grateful that on a summer afternoon,